Hello guys! Welcome to our channel, Techzen. On Tuesday, February 8th, SpaceX and Starlink officially confirmed what many people started speculating about on Twitter. It is that its newest batch of Starlink satellites, launched on Thursday, February 3rd, may have had an issue in orbit and didn't quite get to where they wanted to go. The company launched 49 Starlink satellites with the Falcon 9 rocket on February 3rd. The mission was successful in delivering the batch of satellites to orbit, but disaster struck the next day. It's not the first time we've seen satellites get impacted. However, this may be the most sudden impact on satellites we have seen on record because it did not only take down one Starlink satellite. SpaceX expects to lose nearly an entire launch worth of Starlink satellites after a storm created by the sun struck the Earth's atmosphere. A geomagnetic storm disturbed the Earth's atmosphere. The Starlink satellites were in low orbit. The company launched 49 Starlink satellites on February 3rd, but up to 40 of the satellites will be lost because of the geomagnetic storm burning up in the Earth's atmosphere. Let's discuss some basic terms first. What is Starlink? Starlink is the company's plan to build an interconnected network with thousands of satellites to deliver high-speed internet anywhere on the planet. SpaceX has launched about 1,900 Starlink satellites to orbit to date and has around 145,000 users of the service. In other words, Starlink is going to be an internet service that will cover the entire world, powered by satellites in low Earth orbit, and the goal is to provide internet service to people in more rural areas that may have not access to high-speed internet. Full disclosure. What is space weather? Space weather events are events that happen on Earth but are caused by the sun, and we're going to be focusing primarily here on geomagnetic storms. They are rated like hurricanes on a 1 through 5 scale, G1 through G5. The event that happened on Friday, February the 4th, impacted the Starlink satellites were the lowest, just a G1 or a KP5 event. However, the first impacts on Earth and the first time that the Earth was feeling the effects of space weather started as early as February the 1st. A prolonged stretch of weather, and this is not unusual because we are entering solar cycle 25. A solar cycle is a roughly 11-year period of time when the sun is getting more and more active, more and more sunspots or dark areas on the surface of the sun that may produce these solar flares occur. What are solar flares? Solar flares are large eruptions of electromagnetic radiation from the sun that last anywhere from a few seconds to several hours. The sudden outburst of electromagnetic energy travels at the speed of light, therefore any effect upon the sunlit side of Earth's exposed outer atmosphere occurs at the same time the event is observed. The extreme level of X-ray and extreme ultraviolet radiation results in ionization in the lower layers of the ionosphere on the sunlit side of Earth. Under normal conditions, high-frequency radio waves can support communication over long distances by refraction via the upper layers of the ionosphere. When a strong enough solar flare occurs, ionization is produced in the lower, more dense layers of the ionosphere or the D layer, and radio waves that interact with electrons in layers lose energy due to the more frequent collisions that occur in the higher density environment of the D layer. This can cause high-frequency radio signals to become degraded or completely absorbed. This results in a radio blackout, the absence of high-frequency communication, primarily impacting the 3 to 30 MHz band. The D-RAP or D-region absorption prediction product correlates flare intensity to D-layer absorption strength and spread. Solar flares usually take place in active regions, which are areas on the sun marked by the presence of strong magnetic fields typically associated with sunspot groups. As these magnetic fields evolve, they can reach a point of instability and release energy in a variety of forms, and these include electromagnetic radiation, which is observed as solar flares. Solar flare intensities cover a large range and are classified in terms of peak emission in the 0.1 to 0.8 nm spectral band or soft X-rays of the NOAA GOES XRS. The X-ray flux levels start with the A level. The next level, 10 times higher, is the B level, followed by C flares, M flares, and finally X flares. Timothy Skov, a research scientist of the Aerospace Corp, broke down the basics of a geomagnetic storm for CNBC. First, the sun shoots off magnets in the form of a storm. The Earth's magnetic shield dumps the solar storm's energy into our planet's upper atmosphere and heats it, causing it to inflate and become denser. This increases the drag on satellites in low Earth orbit. SpaceX said that the escalation speed and severity of the storm caused atmospheric drag to increase as much as 50% more than the satellites typically experience in low orbit. After the increased atmospheric drag was detected, the company's operations team put the satellites into a fail-safe mode that rotates the spacecraft onto its edge to reduce a drag position the company has previously described as a shark fin orientation. About 10 of the Starlink satellites are expected to survive and climb to their intended destination orbit. SpaceX did not indicate whether it was aware of the storm. But according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, a solar flare on January 29th caused the storm. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is an American scientific and regulatory agency within the United States Department of Commerce that forecasts weather, monitors oceanic and atmospheric conditions. NOAA measures geomagnetic storms on an increasing severity scale of G1 to G5. The agency had issued a warning for a likely geomagnetic storm of G1 to G2 on February 2nd, the day before SpaceX launch. There is an average of 1,700 such G1 storms throughout an 11-year-long solar cycle, according to NOAA data highlighted by Erica Palmerio, a space weather research scientist at Predictive Science, a company that supports solar studies for U.S. government agencies. According to Palmerio, it's quite a common situation in terms of geomagnetic activity to see a storm the strength of the one that knocked out the Starlink satellites last week. SpaceX deploys the satellites in a lower orbit initially to both launch more at a time so that any issues identified after launch will result in a malfunctioning satellite quickly deorbiting and burning up in the atmosphere. The company advertises its Starlink satellites is designed to fully disintegrate when re-entering, meaning no orbital debris is created and no satellite parts hit the ground. What about SpaceX loss due to storm? SpaceX does not disclose the exact cause of its Starlink satellites or its Falcon 9 launches, but losing the majority of the mission could be a financial hit upward of $50 million based on previous company leadership statements. According to the company, when SpaceX reuses its Falcon 9 rockets, the cost per launch is around $28 million to $30 million. And for the satellites, the company's leadership has said that an estimate of $1 million cost per spacecraft was way off at half that estimate, or $500,000 per satellite. The loss of about 40 satellites would be worth around $20 million. Astrophysicist Jonathan McDowell explained to CNBC, SpaceX has previously deorbited 1 or 2 Starlink satellites after a mission. McDowell is an astrophysicist at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics and catalogs satellite launches. But to lose most of the batch is unheard of, McDowell said. This is huge compared to anything that's happened before. McDowell said the loss is significant for SpaceX as in the context of historic satellite launches, the company has been pretty successful. Furthermore, McDowell said the rocket at least is reliable. And since mid-2020, there have been relatively few total failures of Starlink satellites. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you for watching. If you would like to receive more updates, do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for more updates. According to your opinion, how much did SpaceX lose for Starlink satellites or Falcon 9 launches? If you have any questions, please share your thoughts below. Thank you for staying with us.